Cultaholic fans, as you sit there hopefully as comfortable as you can possibly be, I want you to digest this, because before I rank every WWE pay-per-view of 2011 from worst to best, I have a lot of things I want to get off my chest. I am the best YouTube presenter in the world. I've been the best ever since day one when I logged onto this platform, and I've been hated and vilified since that day, because some of you think I have a funny accent, or that I look like a cartoon character. But cartoon characters aren't real, and it's finally dawned on me what else is not real. And that's me being given a contract from a major Hollywood studio to act in big budget feature films. The only thing that's real is me, and the fact that day in and day out, for almost 5 years, I have proved to everyone in the world that I am the best at singing, at knob jokes, and at playing crappy wrestling video games. Nobody can touch me. Hey Simon Miller, how you doing? Whoops, I'm breaking the fourth wall. Let me tell you a little story about Jack the Jobber, alright? You know how we have this whole anti-bullying campaign? Number 13, Over the Limit. A completely forgettable throwaway pay-per-view with only one worthwhile match to its name, Over the Limit 2011 was easily the worst show of the year. The show began with a so-so R-Truth vs Rey Mysterio match, won by Truth, who was at that point being built up as a major heel. Smoking, Little Jimmy, the whole nine. Then Wade Barrett defended the Intercontinental title against Ezekiel Jackson, remember him, retaining via a weak disqualification. The boys kept it super basic before members of the Core, possibly one of the lamest stables ever, interfered. The Sin Cara vs Chavo Guerrero match was a perfectly watchable lucha exhibition and one of the Masked Man's better outings during his early WWE days, but it still had a couple of ropey moments and fans didn't really seem to care, despite the effort put forth. Leader of the New Nexus, CM Punk, teamed with the muscle-bound Mason Ryan to unsuccessfully challenge for Kane and Big Show's tag titles. It's fair to say that Punk had bigger pay-per-view matches in 2011. Brie Bella retained her Divas title in a 3-minute match with Kelly Kelly thanks to Twin Magic, before Randy Orton defended his World Heavyweight title against Christian in the only really decent thing on this show. These two had amazing chemistry, something which they proved many times at big events. The Jerry Lawler vs Michael Cole Kiss My Foot match looked like a textbook rib on Cole, who was beaten to a pulp, pantsed, beaten by Eve, smothered in barbecue sauce by Jim Ross, and put in a sharpshooter by Bret Hart before being made to chow down on Lawler's foot fingers. And the main event I Quit match between WWE Champion John Cena and The Miz was essentially a handicap match, as Alex Riley was in there on behalf of the Awesome One for much of the contest. The match was crap and had a screwy finish to boot. Next! Number 12, Capital Punishment. Capital Punishment, a show so successful that, to date, there has yet to be another iteration of it. I mean, just look at the event's poster. A cartoon Barack Obama refereeing a match between Rey Mysterio and John Cena, something which almost landed WWE in hot water with White House officials. Yes, promotion of the event hinged on the fact that it was taking place in the US Capitol, though there was nothing particularly political about the show itself. Just a fancy set and the appearance of an Obama impersonator. Kicking off festivities was yet another match in the never-ending Kofi Kingston vs Dolph Ziggler series. This one was fine, as they all invariably are, Ziggler winning the match and the US title thanks to interference from Vicky Guerrero. The Miz took on former ally Alex Riley next in a supposed grudge match, and what probably shakes out as the pinnacle of A-Rye's WWE career. It's not bad at all, and the upset win was genuinely shocking, but it's just so hard to care about Riley, especially watching this one so many years later. Speaking of people I have no time for, Alberto Del Rio is here, and he's wrestling the Big Show. These two had some shockingly good matches in 2012, but this is really more of an angle. Mark Henry destroying the world's largest athlete before the match, and ADR getting a pretty easy win after the Giant was unable to continue the bout, those tree trunks that he calls legs buckling under him. Another title change up next, with Big Zeke winning the Intercontinental title from Wade Barrett in a nothing match. After that, we had the two best matches on the show back-to-back, Rey Mysterio and CM Punk, and then Randy Orton and Christian delivering the goods like a competent mailman. Evan Bourne and Jack Swagger's meeting was energetic filler, and then it was time for the main event, a WWE title match between John Cena and R-Truth. The build to the match was good, but unfortunately it didn't really deliver on the night, like an incompetent mailman. It was slow, it was a bit weird, and had a dodgy finish with a kid chucking a drink into Truth's face. Number 11, WrestleMania 27. It's WrestleMania! It's in wrestling hotbed Atlanta! The actual Rock is the host! So what went wrong here exactly? Well, quite a bit. One of the first mistakes was putting Sheamus and Daniel Bryan's US title match on the pre-show. A guaranteed good time, this one really ought to have been on the main card. Oh well, I'm sure they'll get their chance next year. Edge, in his last match before his miraculous return 9 years later, retained the World Heavyweight title against Alberto Del Rio in a decent enough opener. That was followed by Cody Rhodes getting one over on a Captain America cosplaying Rey Mysterio in another decent match, one of the better ones of the night. The cause loss to Kane, Big Show, Kofi Kingston and Santino Marella in about 90 seconds is not something I would blame you for either forgetting or fast forwarding through, while Randy Orton vs CM Punk was good but probably not quite up to the standard you would expect from these two. Nobody expected much from Jerry Lawler taking on Michael Cole, but they got almost 15 whole minutes of one of the worst WrestleMania atrocities ever committed. Things picked up well in Triple H and The Undertaker's splendid no-holds-barred match, which was stuffed full of drama and brutality and really was the only truly great thing on the show. Not so great is Snooki of Jersey Shore fame teaming with John Morrison and Trish Stratus against Dolph Ziggler and Lay Cool. Although she did do a pretty decent flip thing, look at her go! Daniel Bryan and Sheamus on the pre-show, folks. And our supposed main event, one of the weakest in WrestleMania history, as The Miz retained his WWE title after a pedestrian match thanks to help from the Brahma Bull. There's one or two bright spots to be found on the show, sure, but just not enough for WrestleMania. Number 10, Night of Champions. Fresh off the summer of Punk, we entered the autumn of the game, as Triple H stuck his not inconsiderable nose into the picture and tried to reap the fruits of the voice of the voiceless's labour. In the main event of Night of Champions, Triple H took on CM Punk in what was a pretty damn entertaining no DQ match. The pair brawled all over the arena and maimed one another with plunder, and things were going well and looked promising, especially when Punk managed to kick out of a pedigree after some interference from Miz and Truth. Was this going to be the night that Punk, once ostracized and deemed unworthy of the WWE main event, was going to get a career victory over the man likely to inherit the company? Lol, no. How long have you been watching wrestling for, kid? The cerebral assassin of course got the win thanks to an interfering Kevin Nash. A good throwback to the brawls of the Attitude Era, this was fun, but the result is puzzling even today. In other happenings, Air Boom retained their tag titles over Awesome Truth by DQ in a spirited opener. Cody Rhodes retained his IC title over Ted DiBiase Jr. in a vanilla match. Dolph Ziggler's US title defense in a four-way featuring John Morrison, Alex Riley, and Jack Swagger was a canny little spot fest. Mark Henry finally got his due when he won the World Heavyweight title by putting a motivated Randy Orton into his Hall of Pain. Kelly and Beth Phoenix's match for the Divas title was also very watchable and helped by an enthused crowd. John Cena then regained the WWE title over Alberto Del Rio in a good match that we've seen a million times now. I guess it's a good thing that we never get tired of seeing our hero battle valiantly while never giving up and rising above hate then, isn't it? Number 9, Royal Rumble. With so few matches on offer, the strength and success of the Royal Rumble pay-per-view rested on its titular match. And in 2011, WWE decided that adding another 10 guys to the thing would make it super duper strong. More is more, and too much is never enough, you know? While adding some intrigue and freshening up the concept in theory, in practice the extra bodies didn't really improve the match any. After all, there are only ever a few believable winners, and padding out the field with mid-carders and having an extended Hornswoggle segment wasn't exactly what we all look forward to every January. It began well enough, with CM Punk and Daniel Bryan the first two entrants, the opening moments giving the Ring of Honor alumni a nice platform to demonstrate their impressive skills. John Morrison provided the year's Spider-Man escape by clinging onto the crowd barrier. Your move, Kofi Kingston. The new Nexus went on a tear and netted several eliminations. Booker T returned to WWE after 4 years, making me seriously mark out, bro. But he was dumped, and then it was up to one man. The one man you would want in a situation that called for the odds to be overcome. John Cena to single-handedly rid the ring of those new Nexus toe rags. Then the Hornswoggle thing happened before the little guy was thankfully booted out by Sheamus, and we finally got some more stars with Rey Mysterio and Diesel's entrances. Randy Orton went on a tear and The Miz snuck in to eliminate John Cena before Alberto Del Rio chucked out the Viper to win the whole thing. Or did he? Because here's Santino and he's... Oh no, he's gone too. Del Rio wins. Balls. Earlier on in the night, Edge retained his World Heavyweight title against Dolph Ziggler in a really good match where the Rated R Superstar's spear was banned. Miz beat Orton in a plodding WWE title match, and Eve won a rushed four-way over Lay Cool and Natalya to win the Divas title. Number 8, Hell in a Cell. Hell in a Cell 2011 was all about the main event, not just the match itself, but also the post-match angle that really upped the interest as the show went off the air. Alberto Del Rio captured the WWE title from John Cena in a triple threat match also featuring CM Punk. Stuffed with very clever sequences and just the right amount of violence, these three put on one hell of a show in a long match that was one of the better Cell matches from the era. After the match, the kayfabe-fired Miz and R-Truth ran out and attacked the participants, the referee and cameramen before Triple H, John Laurinaitis and the entire WWE roster, and then a parade of policemen came out to arrest them. If you ignore how ridiculous Stone Cold Mike Mizanin actually is, it was a very effective segment, and it was undoubtedly funny watching the game blast Miz in the head as he had his hands handcuffed behind his back. As for the rest, the opener between Sheamus and Christian was solid if unspectacular. Whoa, I'm seeing double, 4 Sin Caras! Blue Tights beat Black Tights in a sometimes spectacular lucha match that did suffer from a little bit of sloppiness in parts. Air Boom retained the tag titles against Swagger and Ziggler in another tidy match between the two teams. Mark Henry defended his World Heavyweight title against Hall of Pain inductee Randy Orton inside the Cell. The Cell wasn't really used that much, but the match was fine. Randy Orton then went mental with a chair. Cody Rhodes unveiled the new and beautiful white Intercontinental title belt and then defended it against John Morrison in a good match. And Beth Phoenix won the Divas title from Kelly Kelly in a match that, at almost 9 minutes long, was a marathon for the standards of the time. Number 7, TLC. The last show of the year, and rather than the usual run-of-the-mill affair, this was actually a noteworthy event where stuff happened. There were lots of gimmick matches, of course, as well as the odd title change and the in-ring return of a couple of legends. TLC 2011 got off to a heartwarming start as longtime loser Zack Ryder was given a break from being presented as a total patsy and captured the United States title from his buddy Dolph Ziggler in a very heated opener. This was really deserved for Long Island IC, who had gotten himself over with his series of YouTube videos, amassing a ton of fan support throughout the year. Wait a second, getting yourself over via YouTube videos, creating a fan base and fulfilling all of your hopes and dreams? This gives me an idea. The other title changing hands on the night was the World Heavyweight title, Big Show pinning Mark Henry in a chairs match, only to lose it seconds later to Daniel Bryan, cashing in his Money in the Bank contract in surprising and much welcome style. As for the returning legends, Booker T gave a fair go at Cody Rhodes in a serviceable IC title contest, while Kevin Nash cracked skulls with Triple H in a ladder match. I'm not quite sure whose idea it was to put two people with a grand total of 0 quads in a match that required them to climb a goddamn ladder, but this was alright when you factor in the limitations of both men. And credit to the two of them for taking plenty of punishment in a bid to make it engaging. And in the main event, CM Punk retained his WWE title in a clever and big bump-filled triple threat TLC match against Miz and Del Rio. The rest of the card was comprised of filler, but as an overall show, TLC 2011 is as solid as a table, a ladder, a chair, or me. Number 6, Elimination Chamber. Much like the Royal Rumble pay-per-view, Elimination Chamber is going to get a thumbs up or down based on the strength of its signature match. There were 2 here, one for the World Heavyweight title and one to determine the number 1 contender to the WWE title at WrestleMania. The title one was the pick of the pair. In it, Edge was defending against Kane, Big Show, Rey Mysterio, Drew McIntyre, and Wade Barrett. Not a bad lineup, I'm sure you'll agree. Edge and Rey started the match as the first 2 entrants and carried it all the way through to the end, the last few minutes in particular being standout stuff. The crowd were biting on every false finish, and the Master of the 619 looked to have it won on a couple of occasions, eventually succumbing to a perfectly timed spear out of mid-air. The other chamber match, with John Cena, CM Punk, Randy Orton, Sheamus, R-Truth and John Morrison, was also really good and quite brutal in places. I've said it before, and I'll probably say it 1,000 more times, but really, there was only ever going to be one winner here. So what does it take to survive something as evil as the Elimination Chamber? The tendency to never give up as you're forced to outlast tough competitors in an unforgiving environment? Do you need to rise above hate as your foes do their utmost to make sure you don't walk out of that structure the same as when you entered? I rest my case. Oh yeah, the other matches. The Miz retained his WWE title against young upstart Jerry Lawler in a detour on his road to WrestleMania. Alberto Del Rio continued to gain momentum with a hard-fought win against Kofi Kingston, and the team of Heath Slater and Justin Gabriel beat Santino Marella and Vladimir Kozlov for the tag straps. Halcyon days for WWE's doubles division. Number 5, Vengeance. After a 4-year layoff, WWE resurrected the Vengeance branding for the last time for their October 2011 pay-per-view. A double dose of Dolph got us going, as the show-off teamed with Jack Swagger to unsuccessfully challenge Air Boom for the tag titles in a really fun match, before immediately having to defend his US title against Zack Ryder. Despite having already been in one match, Ziggs easily beat Ryder in about 6 minutes with his secondary finisher, the Super Kick. Are you serious, bro? Thankfully, Zack would get his moment before the calendar ran out. Beth Phoenix also retained her title, the Divas Championship, against Eve in a match that was thankfully given enough time to tell its story. Sheamus then brogue-kicked Christian's creepy little face off after a good wrestling match. Next was a weird one, CM Punk teaming with Triple H to take on Awesome Truth. The storyline completely overshadowed the action here, and this was a disappointment. If you can figure out what the whole point of the Kevin Nash angle was, answers on a postcard, please. Former Legacy stablemates Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton then squared off, and the fact that this wasn't for the Dashing One's IC title should have spelled out who the winner was going to be. Still, despite the predictable outcome, this was a good match, and Cody looks on Orton's level and a main event in waiting. Big Show and Mark Henry is a clash of two true super heavyweights, and they were both on a roll in the run-up to this World Heavyweight title showdown. A really good match. This is remembered mostly for the finish, where a colossal superplex effed up the ring, a spectacular visual that hadn't been seen in over a decade since Show and Brock Lesnar did the same. With the ring unlikely to be passed as safe by any honest ring inspector, Alberto Del Rio and John Cena had the task of putting on a worthy main event without the aid of, that thing you usually need to have a wrestling match. Never worry though, as Cena has faced up to odds greater than this before, and he and Del Rio pieced together a gripping match that was creative and managed to turn what should have been a disadvantage into a major plus. Del Rio retained his WWE title in this last man standing affair, one of the best matches between the two, even if the ending, with Awesome Truth running interference, wasn't really needed. Number 4, Survivor Series. Like Flo Rida, the man who sang the official Survivor Series 2011 song, I had a good feeling heading into this pay-per-view. Also like Flo Rida, I'm popular with the ladies and can spit hot fire, but I digress. Yes, Survivor Series 2011, and the biggest story going into the show was that future WrestleMania adversaries The Rock and John Cena would be teaming up to take on Awesome Truth in the Great One's first match in over 7.5 years. This match would take place in the same arena as his last one, which was at WrestleMania 20 in Madison Square Garden. Though not a work of genius by any means, The Rock looks sharp here, and he's really what everyone came to see. And you damn sure better believe that the biggest box office attraction in Hollywood wasn't coming back to do the J.O.B. for a pair of J-A-B-R-O-N-I-E-S. In other notable matches, Mark Henry and The Big Show continued their big beefy rivalry with another good match. Dolph Ziggler retained the US title against John Morrison in a deft choice for an opening match, and CM Punk, with the late great Howard Finkel as his personal ring announcer, beat Alberto Del Rio to become your new WWE champion. I still get goosebumps at the Fink's call. Elsewhere, Beth Phoenix beat Eve Torres in a Lumberjack Divas title match, which was middling but had a standout finish. And Team Barrett, Wade, Cody Rhodes, Jack Swagger, Hunico and Ziggler beat Team Orton, Randy, Kofi Kingston, Mason Ryan, Sheamus and Sin Cara. This was about as good as you were going to get by stuffing all those blokes into the ring at the same time, the biggest surprise being Barrett and Rhodes surviving by last eliminating the Legend Killer. Not so surprising was Sin Cara injuring and thus eliminating himself when he ballsed up a dive. Who'da thunk it? Number 3, Extreme Rules. WrestleMania 27 may have been a huge disappointment, but WWE went some way towards making up for it with their follow-up supercard Extreme Rules. There were continuations and culminations of feuds that should have been finished at the Showcase of the Immortals, a few title changes, and some really strong matches, making it one of the most enjoyable shows of the year. It kicked off with a long and engrossing last man standing match between CM Punk and Randy Orton, which was far better than their wishy-washy Mania effort. Orton won with a super RKO. The night's first title swap happened next, with Kofi Kingston winning the US title in a tables match against Sheamus. This was really well done and had a lot of near misses and novel ways of both men trying to avoid being put through the table, with Kofi finally getting the deed done with a big boom drop from the top to the outside. Again, why wasn't this on the WrestleMania card instead of that blink and you'll miss it 8-man tag? Who knows? Next up was a match that definitely shouldn't have been on the WrestleMania card, but all things considered, it wasn't any worse than Michael Cole and Jerry Lawler's whatever that was. Lawler teamed with JR to take on Cole and Jack Swagger in a country whipping match, as Vince must have realised it had been a minute before he'd managed to place JR in an uncomfortable situation. Rey Mysterio and Cody Rhodes in a Falls Count Anywhere match was much better, the biggest little man avenging his WrestleMania loss after scrapping all over the arena. Lay Cool imploded when Layla and Michelle McCool clashed in a loser leaves WWE no DQ match, Layla getting a fluke win before Karma made her much anticipated debut and battered Mrs. Mark Calloway. The night's emotional high came in the following contest, a ladder match between Christian and Alberto Del Rio for the vacant World Heavyweight title, Captain Charisma attempting to win the gold for the first time after his longtime partner Edge was forced to vacate it due to injury. Christian in a ladder match is guaranteed to be good, and Del Rio was more than game here, the two competitors going all out with everything on the line. In the end, it was to be Christian's night, a timely distraction provided by the Ultimate Opportunist, allowing his real-life best friend to claim his initial World Heavyweight crown. Big Show and Kane retaining their tag titles against core members Barrett and Jackson provided a nice cushion before the main event, a triple threat world title cage match with The Miz defending against John Cena and former tag partner John Morrison. Cena had the odds stacked against him here, especially with R-Truth running interference, but do you seriously, for one solitary second, believe that that would stop Big Match John? Sounds like giving up to me, and the Doctor of Thugonomics don't take too kindly to that kind of talk. It's just not in his character. Cena wasn't able to rise above the steel cage and escape, but he was able to rise The Miz up on his shoulders and deliver a massive top rope AA to net another WWE title. After the match, Cena announced that the US Army had caught and compromised to a permanent end Osama bin Laden, so that's 2 major victories for America that night. Number 2, SummerSlam. It's rare that you get a major pay-per-view without a single bad match or angle or some other nonsense that makes you think, that's a shame, but that was the case with SummerSlam 2011. 6 matches, all of them entertaining and serving a different function in service of the show itself. As an opener, you could do a hell of a lot worse than teaming Rey Mysterio, John Morrison and Kofi Kingston up to take on The Miz, R-Truth and Alberto Del Rio. This was a fast-paced, high-flying 10 minutes that just breezed by, and everyone here got a chance to look good. The next match was certainly not fast-paced and didn't feature many daredevil moves, Sheamus and Mark Henry bringing the smash-mouth style you would expect from 2 certified hosses. Another cracking contest, the world's strongest man beat the Celtic Warrior by countout after slamming him through the barricade. And then another change of pace, with Kelly retaining her Divas title against Beth Phoenix in a brief but lively scrap. The future of WWE looked good as Wade Barrett rolled over Daniel Bryan in a competitive back-and-forth match. Barrett had so much more to offer this company. In the match of the night, Randy Orton and Christian continued their sizzling summer series with a long and exceptional no-holds-barred World Heavyweight title match. Proving that you can do a grudge match with no-holds-barred in a PG setting, Captain Charisma and the Viper used a bunch of weapons as well as their environment to great effect. Importantly, this match also had some great storytelling and called back to their previous encounters. Orton would prevail after a stunning mid-air RKO on the steel steps. More of this sort of thing, please. And in your main event, CM Punk took on John Cena to crown an undisputed WWE champion with Triple H as the special guest referee. Another sterling entry into their storied rivalry, Punk and Cena took us on a ride full of twists and turns and ups and downs and dodgy dropkicks. It was a more than worthy main event, Punk getting the win with the GTS even though Cena's foot was on the ropes. But a Kevin Nash attack after the match set up an Alberto Del Rio cash-in and ended the show on a big, fat, juicy cliffhanger. Number 1, Money in the Bank. Here it is, the best pay-per-view of 2011, one of the best of the 2010s, one of the best ever? It might just bloody be, you know. With 2 exhilarating Money in the Bank ladder matches and a pair of great WWE title matches, as well as a minimum of filler, this is a pay-per-view to savor. The show began with the first of the ladder matches, the SmackDown crew of Kane, Cody Rhodes, Sheamus, Daniel Bryan, Wade Barrett, Heath Slater, Justin Gabriel and Sin Cara, risking it all for a future World Heavyweight title shot. A stacked field comprised mainly of promising up-and-comers, there were really several potential winners here, and the match keeps you guessing right until the end. There's the usual big bumps too, the biggest of which was Sin Cara taking a huge powerbomb through a ladder, and it's never boring. Daniel Bryan emerged a surprise but popular winner, starting a transformation that would change his career and the business forever. Kelly Kelly's Divas title defense against Brie Bella didn't have a hope of following the lunacy of what came before it, and the Big Show versus Mark Henry was kept short as well, Henry winning in dominating fashion as part of a renewed push for the Monster. The Raw Money in the Bank ladder match also had many possible winners, as any one of Alberto Del Rio, Kofi Kingston, Jack Swagger, Rey Mysterio, R-Truth, The Miz, Evan Bourne, or Alex Riley could have won the thing. Okay, maybe not Riley, but the match was another belter and very different from the SmackDown one, serving as a real good showcase for, in particular, Mysterio, Bourne, and Kofi. It was to be Del Rio's night though, with his unmasking of Rey Mysterio giving him the breathing space needed to grab the briefcase. Randy Orton defended the World Heavyweight title against Christian next, with the DQ rule waived, meaning that Vitamin C could have won the belt if Randy lost his temper. Randy Orton losing his temper? That would never ever happen. Oh look, he's kicked him straight in the kill switch. So Christian was champion again, but Orton wasn't done yet, trying and failing to put his opponent through the announce table. Twice. Rumours at the time suggested that the table was subsequently sent to developmental in order to learn how to work. And now the main event. You might have heard of this one. An almost flawless match, CM Punk and John Cena's WWE title headliner was an epic for the ages. The work was great, Punk's hometown crowd were molten, and there were very real stakes, with the best in the world threatening to walk out of WWE after claiming the gold. Punk's real-life contract negotiations and genuine uncertainty around his future made this all the more compelling. After more than 30 minutes of first-class action, Punk walked out as champ after a GTS before thwarting Del Rio's cash-in attempt, which came about at the behest of Vince McMahon. A textbook example of pro wrestling done right, all of the elements were here, and there was clearly magic in the air that night at the All-State Arena.